A white lion cub was trapped in a wooden gate and begged for help. What the hunter did next left everyone in tears. Have you ever heard a cry so desperate it chills you to the bone, yet no one moves fast enough to answer? Deep inside the vast wildlife reserve, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in fiery hues, when a high-pitched, trembling sound shattered the calm. A tiny white lion cub was caught, its delicate paw stuck between the thick wooden slats of a weathered gate. The poor creature twisted, stretched, and whimpered, its eyes wide with fear and a silent plea for rescue. All around, the reserve lay quiet except for the cub's desperate calls. Birds scattered, and nearby animals paused their routines, sensing something was wrong. Not far off, a small group of people, hunters touring the area, heard the cries. A circle formed, faces tightening in curiosity and concern, but hesitation gripped them. The cub's struggle was visible, every movement a testament to its vulnerability, yet the fence loomed like an unmoving barrier. The cub's strength wasn't enough to break free. The atmosphere thickened with tension. Some whispered about getting help, others simply watched, caught between the urge to intervene and the fear of getting involved in something complicated. The twilight deepened, and with every passing moment, the cries became more urgent, a song of survival against growing odds. Still, no one stepped forward immediately. Behind the observers stood a hunter whose rugged reputation preceded him, a man many knew but few truly understood. His eyes flickered toward the trapped cub, the tension in his jaw telling a story untold. What would he do? Would he remain silent like the rest, or would something inside him compel action? The answer to that question would soon shift the hearts of everyone present and change the course of what was about to unfold. The hunter stood slightly apart from the group, his rugged frame shadowed by the fading sunlight. His name was Daniel, known across the reserve for his cold, uncompromising stance on hunting. People whispered stories about him, the silent man with a gun who never smiled, the one who thrived in the wild by proving his strength against nature. Yet, few truly understood what lay beneath his hardened exterior. Daniel's childhood had been shaped by absence and pain. His parents were gone before he could hold on to their warmth, a rushed goodbye and a sudden silence that echoed through his years. Raised by a distant uncle who taught him to rely on himself alone, Daniel grew up believing that showing weakness was a luxury he could never afford. The wild became both his refuge and his battleground, a place where he could test his limits without the constant ache of loneliness. From an early age, hunting was not just a task, but a way to hide the emptiness inside. Each animal brought down marked a momentary victory over the isolation he feared. Yet deep down, he carried a secret guilt, a silent pain that contradicted his outward toughness. No one saw the nights when he would lie awake, haunted by the eyes of animals he had chased but never reached. His heart clenched with conflicting feelings he refused to voice. Now, Daniel's gaze was fixed on the trapped cub. The desperate cries pierced through the walls he had built around himself. Part of him wanted to act, to free the small creature and silence that raw, aching call. But the weight of years told him to stay still, to control the chaos within and without. A tight silence held the watchers captive, Daniel among them. What decision would he make? Would the echoes of his past chain him to indifference, or would something break through the armor, shifting the course of events at this very moment? The answer lay just beyond his grasp. The sun had dipped lower when a figure appeared on the dusty path leading into the clearing. He moved swiftly but calmly, steady footsteps on the dry earth. His name was Marcus, a local wildlife ranger, known not just for his skill, but for a heart worn on his sleeve. Word of the trapped cub had spread quickly, and Marcus had rushed toward the cries that pierced the quiet reserve. As he approached, his breath caught at the sight before him. The fragile white lion cub was wedged painfully between the thick wooden slats of an old gate, its small body trembling with exhaustion and fear. Nearby, a cluster of hunters stood watching, their expressions unreadable. Among them, Daniel's gaze was locked on the cub, conflicted in a way that Marcus noticed instantly. Marcus's hand instinctively reached for the utility belt around his waist. Tools for cutting, a water bottle, a first aid kit, but hesitation rooted him to the spot. The hunters were too close, their eyes cold and watchful. Would any of them allow him to step in? Would Daniel, whose reputation demanded respect, permit this rescue? Doubts gnawed at Marcus's resolve. The cub's cries grew louder, desperation sharpening with each passing moment. Marcus's heart ached. He knew time was scarce. He debated the risks. Could he trust this uneven calm? Could he risk antagonizing the hunters by trying to free the cub himself? Would his presence ignite tension, or could it lead to cooperation? Silence settled briefly as all eyes met his. Marcus's voice finally cut through the quiet, soft but firm. This cub needs help. It's trapped and scared. Leaving it here isn't an option. His eyes found Daniel's once more. There was a flicker there. Anger, uncertainty, maybe something softer. Could this man, so hardened by his past, find room for mercy? Or would old habits win out? Marcus stepped closer, careful but determined. The cub's pleas weighed heavily in the air, threading between the humans like an invisible thread demanding action. Would anyone break the stillness and reach out? Or was the cub's fate sealed in this moment, caught not only in the gate but between fear and hope? The answer hovered, a fragile balance on the edge of what could be and what must. The atmosphere thickened like the heavy heat just before a storm. Marcus's words hung in the air, offering an invitation to mercy, yet inviting challenge. Daniel stepped forward, his voice rough as gravel yet steady. "It's just an animal," Daniel said flatly, eyes never leaving the struggling cub. "Nature's way. If we interfere too much, we upset the balance. We didn't trap it, it got itself caught. Sometimes that's how the wild teaches its lessons." Marcus's gaze sharpened, his jaw tightening. "Lessons? You call this a lesson? The cub is terrified, trapped in pain. This isn't nature working its course. It's suffering, and we have the choice to end it. Don't you see? This isn't about balance. It's about mercy." The others shifted uneasily, the silence fracturing into murmurs. Some hunters exchanged glances, torn between protocol and conscience, their usual bravado flickering in the face of raw vulnerability. Daniel's eyes darkened, a storm welling beneath his calm exterior. "Compassion doesn't mean interference, Ranger. The wild needs strength, toughness that survives by facing harsh truths, not by coddling the weak." His tone was not cruel, but resolute, as if each word carried the weight of a lifetime, spent proving something to himself and others. Marcus took a deep breath, the scent of dry earth and sun-baked wood filling his lungs. "True strength, Daniel, is knowing when to fight and when to protect. This cub, innocent, harmless, is not your enemy. It's a life that deserves a chance, just like any of us." Their eyes locked, a silent battle of wills, past clashing with present. The hunter's cold detachment met the ranger's burning empathy. Around them, the world held its breath, the golden light falling softly through shifting leaves, the cub's faint whimpers threading through the tension. Would Daniel's hardened heart crack under the weight of Marcus's unwavering resolve, or would the silence stretch longer, condemning hope to the shadows? The moment was fragile, a beating pause before the next move, a decision that could reshape not only the cub's fate, but the fragile dance between man and wild. The wind carried soft murmurs through the trees, the cub's faint cries still trembling on the edge of hearing. Marcus stepped aside momentarily, the weight of his words settling heavily in the space between him and Daniel. He couldn't shake the feeling that beneath the hunter's hard exterior, something fragile and complicated hid, something that kept him tethered to this place, to the wilderness, and to his own silent battles. Marcus's gaze shifted briefly to a man standing quietly nearby, an acquaintance known for working closely with Daniel during off-duty hours. With cautious steps he approached, lowering his voice to a respectful whisper. "There's something you should know about Daniel," he said. "Most don't see it, but he's never truly liked this hunting life. It wasn't always about pride or proving strength. It's more complicated." Curiosity stirred deep within Marcus. Complicated how? The man hesitated. He lost his family when he was young, left to survive on his own. Hunting became his way to find control over chaos. But killing, hurting animals, it breaks him inside. He hides it well, wearing that tough mask, but it's there, always there. Marcus turned back to Daniel, watching the man's rigid stance, the clenched fists at his sides. The hunter's eyes flickered briefly with something unreadable, haunted perhaps, or ashamed. How long had Marcus missed this? A question pressed on Marcus's heart. If Daniel's strength was built on pain and loneliness, was his refusal to help the cub truly cruelty? Or was it fear, denial, a desperate shield against his own vulnerability? The ranger's mind wrestled with these thoughts as the cub whimpered again, caught in the wooden trap. Was Daniel's anger and stubbornness a battle not against the wild, but against himself? Could that same pain that hardened him break open with an act of compassion? Marcus didn't know yet. He only knew that somewhere beneath the surface, a hidden truth waited, waiting for a chance to be heard, to be understood, and to perhaps change everything. For the first time, the choice felt less like right or wrong, and more like a fragile question hanging in the balance. Marcus's voice softened, curling through the dry air like a gentle invitation rather than a challenge. He stepped closer to Daniel, eyes steady, searching not for confrontation, but connection. The cub's soft cries flickered behind them, a fragile reminder of what lingered between their opposing wills. "You don't have to face this alone, Daniel," Marcus said quietly, keeping his tone low enough that no one else could overhear. "That pain you carry, it doesn't have to break you down anymore." Daniel's face tightened. For a moment his jaw clenched, as though swallowing the weight of years pressed unseen beneath his tough shell. His gaze dropped to the trapped cub, the fluttering chest struggling against the confine of twisted wood. The question wasn't just about the animal anymore, it was about the cracks in Daniel's armor, about opening when every instinct screamed to close. Marcus reached out, hesitating for only a heartbeat before letting his hand fall away. "I don't believe you want to hurt it. You're scared maybe, angry, but that's not all you are." His silhouette was still, but his voice carried a quiet strength, steady and patient. "Help me free the cub. Let today be the start of something different, for you and for what you care about." A breath slipped past Daniel's lips, slow, uncertain. The hunter's eyes flickered with a sudden fragile vulnerability. The hard edges softened just enough that Marcus glimpsed the man beneath. Not a hunter, but a person caught between loss and longing. Minutes stretched as silence settled between them. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, Daniel nodded. The resistance faltered, replaced by something tentative, a reluctant trust. Together they stepped toward the wooden tangle trapping the cub. Marcus's nerves thrummed, hope blooming like a fragile sprout breaking through stone. This small act, freeing the cub, was more than rescue. It was a quiet call for healing. In that moment, the line between hunter and rescuer blurred. Two souls found a reason to reach out, to step beyond fear. The cub's soft cries wove a promise. They would not let it go unanswered. The air shifted suddenly as a deep rumble rolled through the clearing. Marcus froze, eyes scanning the tall grass beyond the tangled gate where the cub struggled. Dust stirred in the distance, growing heavier with each second. Daniel's hard gaze followed the movement, narrowing not in anger but caution. From the shadows between the trees emerged a massive elephant. Its trunk swung low, nostrils flaring, ears wide and tense. The powerful animal's footsteps hammered the earth, each step vibrating like a warning. The elephant stopped mere meters from the trapped cub, its eyes locking on the helpless creature in a haunting display of both protectiveness and confusion. Marcus took a slow breath, his voice steady, though his heart raced. "That elephant's angry. It's protecting the little one, or something close to it." Daniel didn't reply. His body tensed, muscles coiling as if ready to act. For the first time, the distance between hunter and ranger shrank, united by the shared urgency of the moment. Neither moved toward the cub just yet. Instead, they both held still, watching the great beast in front of them. "Moving too fast might provoke it," Daniel said quietly, calculating. Marcus nodded. "We'll need to work together. Calm it down before we try freeing the cub." The elephant let out a low, deep breath, a sound both powerful and uneasy. It paced slowly, trunk brushing the ground, eyes flickering between the trapped cub and the men who stood frozen, caught in the thick tension. Marcus stepped forward carefully, hands open and visible, voice gentle but firm. "Easy! We mean no harm." His words floated on the dry air as the elephant's eyes flicked toward him. The beast's body relaxed just a little, muscles easing but ready. Daniel moved beside Marcus, his voice quieter but certain. "It's scared. We've got to show it we're not a threat." The elephant's rumble softened. The moment stretched taut, danger hanging like a fragile thread. Then slowly, the beast lowered its massive head, eyes calm but watchful. Marcus gave Daniel a quick look, their unspoken agreement clear. They'd face whatever came next, side by side. Together, they began moving toward the gate, steady and careful. The cub's cries softened, hope flickering again in the quiet as the wild animal's fierce presence began to shift from threat to silent guardian. But the moment wasn't over. Somewhere in the distance, an unsettling sound rose, sharp and urgent, pulling their attention away from the elephant. The tension hung thick in the heavy air after the elephant finally calmed, its watchful eyes still never fully leaving the cub struggling against the gate. Marcus's chest heaved with the rush of adrenaline and relief. He glanced at Daniel, searching for a clue that this sudden teamwork would last, past this moment. The silence between them was fragile, loaded with unsaid words. Then Daniel's gaze dropped to the ground, voice low and hesitant. "I need to be honest with you." He cleared his throat, eyes still averted. "When I'm out here hunting, it's not what it seems. I've hated every minute of it. The pain it brings me is more than you know." Marcus's heart skipped. He hadn't expected this. "You hate hunting?" His voice was soft, unsure. "Then why keep doing it?" Daniel lifted his eyes, and Marcus caught the flicker of vulnerability inside, a man who'd carried too much alone. "It's the only way I know to push down the things I can't face. Losing my family, the silence, it haunts me. Hunting kept me numb, proved I was strong. But inside, I'm not sure anymore." He let out a shaky breath and looked toward the restless cub. "Leaving it trapped, helpless. It feels like I'm part of its suffering." Marcus's mind raced. Was this all an act of desperation? A silent scream behind the hunter's tough exterior? Could he trust this confession, or was it just another mask? Still, the cub's cries cut through the doubt. Marcus stepped closer, his voice steady with newfound hope. "Then help me free it. Help us make this right, Daniel." Daniel hesitated, his jaw clenched. "Can I really change? After all these years? What if I'm just fooling myself?" The unspoken question hung between them like a challenge, a chance for forgiveness from both the world and themselves. Marcus reached out, placing a cautious hand on Daniel's shoulder. "It's not about being perfect. It's about trying. Starting now." For a long moment, Daniel stood frozen, wrestling with a choice he hadn't dared make before. Then he nodded slowly, a fragile promise birthed in the quiet of the wild. Together, they turned back to the gate, united not only by the cub's desperate plight, but by a shared chance of redemption neither expected to find on this day. The path ahead was uncertain, shadowed by past mistakes and unanswered questions, but for the first time, hope felt possible. The gate creaked open slowly, releasing the white lion cub from its wooden prison. Its small body trembled as it stepped into the warm sunlight, eyes wide with cautious hope. The world was vast and uncertain, but it was free. The moment held a quiet magic, as if life itself had pressed pause to witness the fragile triumph. Marcus and Daniel stood side by side, both breathless and soaked in the weight of the experience. For Marcus, the cub's escape was not just about saving an animal. It was the first step in healing something deeper within himself and within Daniel. The tension between them had softened into something new, an unspoken understanding that neither expected to find. Daniel looked at the cub's retreating form, his face shifting between wonder and disbelief. "I didn't think I could feel like this. But watching it walk away, it's like I've carried this guilt for so long, and now there's a chance to do better." Marcus nodded slowly, his gaze steady. "It's never too late to change. The cub, this moment, can be more than just an end. It can be a beginning." for both of us." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft rustle from nearby bushes. A group of reserve workers approached, eyes shining with relief and respect. They had witnessed the rescue, their admiration silent but powerful. The rescue was no longer a lonely battle. It had become a shared victory. Over the next days, Marcus and Daniel worked together, weaving a bond born from the wild's unpredictable grace. Daniel began attending meetings with the rangers, learning about conservation and the delicate balance of life. With every story he heard, his resolve grew firmer, no longer just to hide pain, but to use it as fuel for protection. The cub's cry had transformed into a symbol, a call to compassion that bridged two worlds. The hunters and the protectors, once divided, now found common ground. Their unlikely friendship became a new force within the reserve, inspiring others to look beyond old roles and open their hearts. As the cub disappeared deeper into the wilderness, free and resilient, the promise made that day echoed quietly in the breeze. Kindness and empathy can mend even the most fractured souls, lighting a path toward hope and renewal. The days that followed the cub's rescue were filled with a gentle healing, unseen but deeply felt. Marcus and Daniel, once strangers divided by their pasts, now shared a quiet camaraderie built on understanding and hope. The wild was no longer just a place of survival. It had become a sanctuary for their hearts. Each morning, as the sun poured golden light over the vast reserve, Daniel would stand quietly near the edge of the trees, watching the cub's distant silhouette blend with the wilderness. The cub was free, strong, and alive, an emblem of second chances. For Daniel, this was more than an anecdote of a saved animal. It was a revelation. The weight of years spent chasing shadows in the forest began to lift, replaced by a purpose that dismantled the loneliness he had carried so long. He found himself listening more deeply, to the stories of the rangers, to the whispers of the wind through the branches, and to the steady beat of a heart opening to compassion. Marcus, too, felt the shift. The hardness that once defined him softened into patience and kindness, a reflection of the gentle resilience thriving within the cub's survival. Together, they became guardians not only of the wildlife, but of the fragile trust between hunter and protector, two roles once thought incompatible. Their unexpected friendship inspired others in the reserve, spreading a message that kindness was not weakness, but strength. That understanding could bridge even the deepest divides. The reserve blossomed with renewed energy, a place where every life, no matter how small or endangered, was valued and defended. As the cub disappeared into the wild, no longer a symbol of struggle but of hope, Marcus and Daniel stood side by side, united in their shared mission. The journey that began with a desperate cry for help had led to a powerful truth. Compassion transforms not just the world around us, but the very souls within us. Healing is possible, and kindness is its truest voice. If this story touched your heart in any way, share in the comments which moment moved you the most. What lesson do you feel shines brightest from this journey? Subscribe to the channel. Your presence here makes every story worth telling. And remember, the next story might touch you even deeper.